So it's been a while since I've done a comparison, and today I have some really cool watches to compare. I have an SRP777 in my right hand, that is the Turtle, and then in my left hand I have a Captain Willard. This is the SBDC109. These are very similar watches with good reason, because the Turtle is essentially a more affordable version of the Captain Willard. So they do have a lot of similarities, not only in looks, but in specs. So they both are 200-meter dive watches. They both get stainless steel cases, drilled lugs, crowns at the 4 o'clock position. Both of them have some protection from the case that have sort of built-in crown protection, black dials, black bezels. This gets a hardlex crystal. This gets a sapphire crystal. The dials are very similar as well, black dials on both of them. The indices look very similar, however, on the SBDC109 you get applied indices, while on the Turtle you are getting printed indices. You do get LumiBrite on both of them. Seiko there just below the 12 o'clock indice. And then above the 6 o'clock indice, both of them have the Prospex logo. It just says automatic and divers 200 meters, because both of these are 200-meter dive watches. You get a date at the 3 o'clock, which replaces an indice on the Captain Willard. On the Turtle, you get day date. This has actually been modified, so you do get that red square on a Sunday, which looks really cool. So the date wheel has actually been replaced. This gets a 4R36. It does hack, it does hand wind. It's essentially Seiko's version of the NH36. It's a proprietary movement to Seiko. They don't sell it outside of the Seiko group. So in other words, it is basically an NH36. However, they call it the 6R36. That's the only difference really that is between those two movements. However, it does hack and it does hand wind. Obviously, the Willard gets a little bit better of a movement. That's the 6R35, which is an upgraded 6R15, a little bit more power reserve, a little bit more accurate than the 4R36 as well, but nothing too crazy. They are both really nothing to look at. So you do get screwed-in case backs, screwed-in crowns. That's because you get the 200 meters of water resistance. Both the case backs look very similar. The only difference is really this finishing, which is slightly different. Both of them are screwed in. You get that wave motif on the back as well. Both of them are stamped, I believe. The undersides of the cases look very similar. However, obviously there is a size difference. The Turtle is a 45mm watch, while the Willard is a 42mm watch. However, you can see the lug to lugs on both of these watches are very, very tight. Now, the lug to lug on here is about 46mm. However, with that male end link, you're getting around a 50mm lug width. On here, this does not have a bracelet on it, but it would have male end links as well. But the lug to lug is about 48mm, or just around 48mm. 48.1 is what I'm measuring. So they have a very similar lug width, almost very similar. And there's very similar thickness as well. So this is around 13.5mm thick, or 13.3. And then the Willard is just a hair thicker at 13.7mm thick. So very, very similar thickness. You probably would not notice on your wrist. And I will do a wrist shot so I can show you guys. Very similar bezels. Actually, the bezels are actually, inserts are almost exactly the same. I believe this gets an upgraded ceramic bezel, while this has an aluminum bezel insert or a steel bezel insert. It could be, I believe it is aluminum. However, it is painted. The bezels themselves, you get a chunkier bezel on the Turtle, a little bit more elegant, thinner bezel on the Willard. You can see the sides are scalloped. They sort of are polished as well. The bracelet on the SRP is really not good, and that's why the person who actually owns this watch, both watches are lent into the channel, and I should get into that in just a second, put this on a Tropic rubber strap. The bracelet on here is not so great. It has pressed elements, which isn't that great. I think the bracelets on these sort of mid-range, mid-high range, high-end range Seikos are pretty good. There is some pressed elements in the bracelet itself that aren't that great, but I don't mind it. I think they're very well made. You do get push pins. Seiko do push pins no matter what. The buckle is okay. I do like them. You get solid end links, which isn't bad. these feel like really well-made watches in your hand. In my opinion, I think they are very well-made watches, on par with much higher-end sort of Swiss-made watches. In my opinion, I really do think so. These, not so much. However, they are really nice, and they give you a lot of bang for your buck. The Hardlex crystal at this price, Hardlex is just not good at a $500 price. And that's what they charge for these retail. On the aftermarket, you could definitely mod these. For $300, it makes a lot more sense, but still, that does not make sense, even at that price, to have a sapphire crystal. They need to put sapphire crystals on their lower end. Dive watches, it would make a huge difference, but I think that they sort of are worried about cannibalization of the sales on these watches, and that's the reason why they don't do it. So if you want a Seiko, you want that heritage, you want something that's a Turtle, you want something that's a Willard, that's the reason why they do it, I think. But that's just the way it is. Very quickly, I just want to talk about Blanchard watches. Blanchard watches are the brand that I recently reviewed one of their watches. It was a chronograph, Mecha Quartz chronograph, really awesome watch that actually funded on Kickstarter. The owner of that brand, actually lent me some of his personal watches, and these are two of his personal watches. He is a obvious fan of watches. He's a fan of Seiko watches, and he lent me his personal Willard and his personal Turtle, which he modded. He actually modded the second hand on here, because this is not the second hand that it actually comes with, and he actually modded the date wheel. Very, very cool, and I'm really happy that he was very generous enough to lend me these watches for review, and I'm doing a comparison, which is also very cool. So very quickly, I'm going to throw it on my wrist so you guys can see. Awesome watches. I really am a big fan of Seiko dive watches, as you can see, because I am wearing my SBDC109. This is my personal watch, which is very similar to this Willard. Very similar setup, very similar price, very similar materials and look. Just the case shape is a little bit different, but you're getting the same sort of indices, the same date area. This has a little bit of a surround around it. The bezel's different on this because this is an older model. This gets a 6R15. However, the new versions of this get a 6R35, so there you go. Ironically, I have a very similar wrist size, so this watch just goes on very easily, and you can see, as I mentioned, this is a 42 millimeter watch, just over 42 millimeters. I measured around 42.3 millimeters, but it really depends on where you're actually measuring it around the case to get that. It does have this crown guard, so it wears a little bit bigger than that, but the lug-to-lug is very, very tight on this watch. Even though it has these male end links, the male end links do face directly down, so it doesn't really add a ton of girth. So it's around 50 millimeters, including that. 44 millimeters is what the SBDC061 is, and you can see there's really no difference between the way that this watch wears and the way that that watch wears at all. And I'll be doing a comparison between the two because they do wear very similarly. And that's one of the reasons why I love that SBDC061, because of the way it wears. This wears so similar. It's very comfortable. Just a really nice, very well-made watch. In my opinion, this does not have any bezel alignment issues. Mine does. I did not do the due diligence that I should have and return the watch when I got it. I was so excited about it that I overlooked it. And then later on I saw it, and then I decided I could have still returned it, and I just never did. That's my fault. I should have. And then Seiko said they would take it and fix it, and I never did that either. So that has basically run out. Time has run out on that, and I never did it. But again, no bezel alignment issues on this Turtle. I've owned a Turtle, and it had a bezel alignment issue. I tried to get one without one. I bought it from the department store. Every single one that they had, it was a Save the Ocean, had a bezel alignment issue. I ended up selling that watch because I just couldn't. I didn't want to keep it. You can see that date window, really cool. You do get the day date, so that's a little bit different from the Willard, but you do get the 6R36. That's the reason why. And it was modded. He modded the actual date wheel on here. This does hack and hand wind. I think I've mentioned that. To actually add that Roman numeral date wheel, and then you get the Sunday, you get a black square, red square, excuse me, which looks really cool. He also modded that second hand. He also modded the crown. So the modded crown on here just has the word lock and an arrow on it, which looks really cool on this. And that's a callback to some original Seikos, I believe, had this actually on there. The crowns are very similarly positioned. A little bit smaller on the Willard, a little bit bigger on the Turtle, obviously because it's a bigger watch, 45 millimeters, with a little bit shorter of a wingspan, lug span, because it's on this strap. But if it wasn't, it's about 48.5 millimeters, somewhere around there, 48. So if it was on a bracelet, it would be a little bit bigger than that, but nothing too absurd. Definitely wearable, really wearable watches. And I gotta be honest, like, on a strap, this feels a lot better than it does on a bracelet. I recommend this watch on a strap no matter what. I would get the bracelet, but I would always replace the bracelet with the strap on these 4R36 powered lower end Seikos. However, there are brands that make, like Uncle Seiko and Strap Code and a few others that make really good bracelets to replace your Turtle bracelet if you want one. So definitely not a bad thing, but if you want something that's original, you'd have to go a different route. There's really nothing you can put on. You can't put this bracelet on there, so I'm not sure what you can do. So very quickly, let's do a loom shot. I'm going to throw in my SBDC061 just out of curiosity, because literally some of the best loom, every time I have a loom challenge on this channel, I always include my SBDC061 because it's so good. So very quickly, loom shot, then we'll wrap up the video. So unless you are very familiar with the handsets here, it's going to be a little bit difficult, and the indices of course, to tell the difference between the three watches. So in the middle, we have the Turtle. So that is the SRP777. On the right side here, we have the Willard. That is the SBDC109. And then on the left side, all the way over here, this watch right here, is the SBDC061. You could see that these are all equally as bright. I charge them for the exact same amount of time. They all have a pip at 12 o'clock. They all have very similar sort of indices that are sort of, the setup is similar. Just no circular indices on the Willard. You do get circular indices on the Turtle and on the SBDC061, but the loom itself is applied very liberally. It's very bright. Lumibrite never fails. They always do a great job. It's equally applied on the indices and hands, and it doesn't matter if you're getting a printed dial. As you could see, there it is. The Turtle is just as bright as the other two. If you would tell me that there was a difference between the actual indices, I would have to say it doesn't make a difference, and it doesn't. You could see it looks really good. The hands, obviously, they've gone the extra mile and actually done a pretty good job. So when loom is in question here, the Turtle and the Willard pretty much on par with each other, which is really awesome, especially considering the price difference. And loom is expensive, as I've said on this channel a few times. Loom is very expensive. For a brand to liberally apply it is awesome, because it does cost them a lot of money. Now, I've been talking for a few minutes. There's been essentially no fade on any of the watches, and that's because Lumibrite is a great product. Just awesome watches. Again, I'll go through the prices. So you can get the Turtle for less than list price. The list price on it is $495. Right now, I don't believe Seiko even have them in stock. But if you wanted to buy one, you could buy one on eBay for $300 or Amazon very easily, $300 to $400. No problem whatsoever. The Willard, a little bit harder to get. They are retailing for around $1,100. I believe they sell for around $1,300, $1,200 on eBay on the secondary market. And then the SBDC061, the watch that I have, originally sold for $1,050. They've upgraded them now recently. Those are selling for around $1,000. So just about the asking price on the secondary market used. That's what they're selling for. Prices are going up a little bit, but nothing too incredible as compared to the Willard, which is actually a more popular watch with I guess good reason. I don't know. I really love the SBDC061. I'm going to do a comparison between the SBDC061 and the SBDC109. I really would like to see the difference between the two close up. I'm going to do a lot of close-ups in that video as well. Anyway, tell me what you guys think of these three watches. Tell me what you think of the comparison between the Turtle and the Willard. Do you own one of these? I think that there are definite differences in quality, but the quality differences aren't that apparent, especially when you get the turtle on a strap. A lot of that has to do with the bracelet on the turtle. If you are a fan of the Willard, the turtle is a really good alternative from the same maker, which is pretty awesome. And that's what Seiko are really good at, sort of offering internal alternatives to their own watches, which is funny, by downgrading some of the movements. But the 4R36 isn't really that much of a downgrade from the 6R35. Some people will argue that, but it's just a little bit more accurate when you go to the 6R35. But anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel. I very much appreciate it. Please follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is WatchChrisBlog. I have some links in the description. Those links are to Amazon. If you click those links and buy anything, it helps support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra. However, I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.